So you want to learn how to be as happy and wonderful as Alexander? Well, we got it right now. This is the Game Philosopher. In this show, we talk about anime, manga, gaming, philosophy, and as of right now, happiness. So, Aristotle has a very unique view of happiness in the Nicomachean Ethics. And the reason why I talk about Alexander as a joke a lot when I did this series on Aristotle is because Aristotle was the educator of Alexander, and I thought that would be always the funniest thing to do. So keep it up. Now, talking about happiness, what do most people do when they're happy? Or how do they get happy? They go after different amusements, they distract themselves, they listen to music, they listen to poetry readings, they play video games. Oh, that makes me happy. They listen to music, like again, music. They go to a theater, they go to a movie theater, hang out with friends. But there's more to it. A lot of times, people confuse happiness with amusement. And there's three types of happiness, which I think Aristotle would even agree with. You have the cheerfulness, amusement, and then happiness itself. I think, for example, if we're talking about cheerfulness, I've covered it in a video before. It's more of a skill and less of a form of happiness, but it can lead to happiness if you just practice this thing called cheerfulness. Now, another thing is happiness itself is something that we could get through amusement, but at the same time, what happens when you're no longer amused? Well, you lose it. Because you get bored, or you might get sad. What happens then is that you become unhappy. And so you can't really say amusement is, so scratch all this stuff about video games, music, artwork, movies, and all that stuff. Happiness can come through things like living a good life, because if you know how to live, you will find the keys to happiness. Now, a lot of people will say happiness has some subjective element, which is kind of true if you count the fact of things that make certain people happy or not happy are different. But then, again, we might be confusing happiness with amusement. So if I don't like, for example, RPGs, what my friend does, what happens is I will get bored by the RPG, but he will be amused by it. And so really, when we're looking at happiness, we should look more about the ability to keep a consistent happiness, to have the bar raised from just bland contentment to being satisfied with life. And a big part of that is to be able to get what you need, to live virtuously, which is a very big thing that most people don't really realize. Like, if you don't live virtuously, it's really hard to be happy. Then another thing would be simply to master skills. And some people will live a focused life, some people will not, but they're still doing the same thing. They're still trying to master skills, whether it's just a few tiny little skills, or they're trying to get a more renaissance outlook and master a bunch of skills. And in this, you have happiness through very consistent means. For example, you're reflecting on life, you are working on yourself, whether it's through the virtue or through learning the skills that you really want to learn. You find a certain form of freedom that arises from being happy through doing what you want and through mastering these things, and that's how you can find happiness. Now, Aristotle, in the Nicomachean Ethics, he talks a great deal of happiness, and I can't cover it all because there's so much that can be found in this entire idea. But he also talks about moral activity as secondary happiness. So while I put a big talk on happiness as in the moral sense, really moral happiness is not really the biggest thing. But and according to Aristotle, but at the same time, the fact is that Aristotle is realizing what's good for our character, and yet at the same time, Aristotle also, in many senses, talks about how being happy and is being satisfied with life, but life on this plane is actually way too high for the divine element in human nature, which would mean that you can't really get to happiness through human means, because what happens is that everything's imperfect, and so that creates the imperfect thing within human nature itself. So really, when we're talking about happiness, we can't really talk about it in the sense of the divine not being there, because, well, atheists will attack me for this point because atheists don't believe in the divine. But rather, I think if you're thinking about it from an atheistic standpoint, it'd be more living according to nature and recognizing that, well, nature is greater than us and that things are imperfect and all this other Stoic stuff that's not really related to Aristotelianism, but pretty much the whole entire idea is that the man is the best and most, who has the best and most pleasant life is the life of the intellect, since the intellect is the full sense of man, so will this life also be the happiest, as Aristotle said. And really, we are compartmentalizing things and we are using our brains. So really, the whole entire Stoic idea of going to nature, well, since we are rational animals, we actually become happier because we are following our nature, just as dogs like to follow their nature and they hunt and they go around scavenging stuff from humans just as dropped food, and that makes them happy. It also makes them happy to exercise a lot, because the canines, they don't like sitting on their butts all day, even though my dog likes to, except for when she runs. So pretty much, if we get rid of the divine element, or even the intellectual element from happiness, there's no way we can really be happy, because what happens is that we are pretty much neglecting a lot about life. So yeah, this is the Game Philosopher. Thank you for watching.